just yesterday. You know what the FCC approved yesterday? The purchase of George Soros buying up 200 radio stations. And Rob did a very good clip on it on Twitter with one of them, Rob, if you can say the one in Cuba. What's the one that he bought in Cuba? The conservative radio. Matter of fact, just play your clip, Rob, if you have it. Just play your clip on Twitter. Go to the one that you put up. Rob explains exactly what happened. This just happened yesterday or 2 days ago. Why would FCC approve this? Why would FCC approve something like this? This didn't make any sense to me. Watch this here, folks, on what Soros just bought yesterday. Go ahead.
Looking to expand his evil empire. In February, George Soros purchased Odyssey, one of the largest radio companies in the United States. I think it was for $300 million. He ended up purchasing 230 radio stations nationwide, including sports radio stations like WFAN in New York, K-Rock, which is a legendary rock station in Los Angeles. K-Rock. Purchased 230 radio stations. Think about that. Buying radio stations in the digital age of media. These stations are going bankrupt because they cannot afford to pay their bills. Talent is being consolidated. Sales are down. Streaming is up across all platforms. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Rumble. Nobody is listening to the radio.
Why is he buying it?
Well, why do you think? Not even just U.S. radio stations. He actually tried to purchase, and this was the oddest one that I found. He tried to purchase a Cuban radio station, WAQI 710 AM Mambia. It is a conservative Spanish radio station in Cuba. Why would you want to buy an AM conservative radio station in Cuba? George Soros.
Ephesians 2, 1 and 2. And you have he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sins, wherein past time ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Call holo Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakakodash. Double honors and salutations to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Wah, the elders and apostles, a great millstone. The water for your diligence throughout all these years. You're worthy of the title. Shalom to the 144,000 elect men that are pushing this truth in this very hour. Shalom unto you, beautiful brothers, and shalom to the innumerable 1/3. Consists of men, women, and children that were blessed with the mark of the Tawah, was exempt from the judgment that is fast approaching, pursuant to Ezekiel 9 and 4. And those who are ordained to believe on the names of Yahweh, Wah Yahweh Shah, the actual names of the Heavenly Father and His Son in the ancient Paleo Hebrew. Okay, I'm the brother Yazar Allah from the GMS Dallas camp, coming back at you with another quick hit lesson, Abaratazah. It be edifying unto those who are meant to receive it. Abaratazah meaning Lord willing in the ancient Paleo Hebrew. All right, so the name of this lesson here, well, I was kind of going back and forth. It's called ESAU is the Prince of the Power of the Air. And the subtitle is Something Wicked This Way Comes. And that's kind of been floating in the back of my mind because, 1983 movie called Something Wicked This Way Come, iconic classic movie. But we can see right now, as you see here, what he's talking about here is George Soros. All right, it's pretty much bought up over 200 radio stations. All right, so these devils are prepping for something big. All right, as I said, something wicked this way is coming. Okay, now he just purchased, it's called Odyssey. All right, and Odyssey, it's Odyssey Incorporation. It's pretty much, it's an American broadcasting company based out of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. All right, I believe it was founded in 1968. Right, and it used to be the, it's called Intercom Communications Corp. That's what it's called. All right, and it's the second largest radio company in the United States, and it's owning over 220, give or take, radio stations, right, across 47 media markets. All right, and here it says November 2017, it merged with CBS Radios. Audacity merged on September 30th, 2024, and is now a privately owned company. All right, so as I said, these devils are moving in secret. All right, everything that they do is in the dark, whether it's voting, passing legislation, or something like this, purchasing a huge major broadcasting network. All right, in order for what? Ultimately, it's the power is to what? Control the narrative. Okay, so we see in this video, all right, these people aren't understanding why George Soros would purchase all of these AM radio stations when, as he's mentioned, radio stations are on decline. All right, now you got, Spotify and all these things that are feeding the public. All right, so radio stations are becoming kind of a thing in the past, but what these people don't know, the average person don't know what the wicked knows. All right, everything they do is calculated and it's for a reason. Okay, nothing is just done by chance. All right. First precept I want to grab is Isaiah 29 and 15. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us, right? So when going into this, all right, we see that this was a move that was done, because what they'll do, they'll usually, they'll purchase something or make a big move or do something that is going to affect all of us eventually, but it's done in secret in the dark, and we're not known about it until after the process, right? Whether after the bill is passed or after the purchase is whatever they're purchasing is complete.
7 o'clock.
All right, and then the public, all right, knows about this. Now we know that Odyssey actually went bankrupt or filed for Chapter 11 the beginning of this year in January, and just what 9 months later, all right, George Soros decides to buy it. Okay, now when you go into actually, just understanding the importance of radio and communication, as I said, it is a key factor when delivering information, all right, controlling the narrative and so forth and so on. So it's a couple of things that I have here, and it says United States AM radio broadcasting stations are assigned to 117 channels. All right, these are AM. All right, FM broadcasting stations are assigned to about 101. All right, goes on to say with carrier frequencies ranging from 540 kilohertz to 1700 kilohertz and 10 kilohertz steps. AM stations are identified by their assigned carrier frequencies and not by one channel numbers. Now, right, so basically, each radio station has its own channel. All right, now, while only one station can technically broadcast at a single channel, out of a single channel, some stations use what's called a directional antennas, all right, to minimize interference with other stations that are on that same frequency within areas, just to give you some understanding. So we know Texas is huge, all right, and pretty much, I believe at one time it was a continent from what I'm from Miami, but that's what I was told. But Texas is huge. All right. And so, there's a lot of cities. All right. There's a lot of radio stations that are down here. Okay. So we know that there are over 6,000 AM radio stations that are in the US. Now, ironically, when you look at car manufacturers like BMW, Mazda, I think it's Volkswagen, if I remember correctly, these are some of the automakers, among the automakers, that decided pretty much to stop putting AM radios in their new electric vehicles. All right. And basically, it was citing that the electric engines interfere with the sound of the AM stations. Okay. But we know, all right, there is a there is a method to the madness. Okay, as I said, these people are the wicked. They don't do anything just by chance. Everything that they do is calculated. Okay, as a matter of fact, there's a couple articles here I want to go into. Here, matter of fact, we're going to this one here. All right, so Soros buys over 200 radio stations week before the U.S. election. Keep that in mind. Okay, so like I said, they filed for Chapter 11, Odyssey did, in January at the beginning of the year. 9 months later, he buys it, okay, right before the election. Okay, so again, if you follow me, something wicked this way is coming. Okay, so let's go into a little bit of this here. It says, billionaire activist George Soros has reportedly been approved to purchase Odyssey, the second largest chain of radio stations in the U.S. All right, yeah, and it goes on to federal commissions, U.S. agency responsible for regulating communications, radio, television, wire, satellite cables last week approved the purchase with 3 Democrats on the commission outvoting the 2 Republicans according to the New York Post. It says a spokesman for the FCC told Fox News Digital that no decision is final until the commission is released, which we have not. Okay, so mind you, this was 3 months ago. All right, so in February, Soros, who's 93 years old, left-wing globalist, bought $400 million of debt in Odyssey after the company declared bankruptcy, making him the largest shareholder. Right, so I said they declared bankruptcy in January of this year. So the company has since issued reconstructed and is currently home of conservative voices like Sean Hannity and Mark Levine and Glenn Beck. Now, we all know Glenn Beck. We watch, some of us brothers, we actually watch his station, all right, or watch his show, as he can be very informative. It goes on to say, a source told the New York Post, the idea that George Soros is buying hundreds of local radio stations right before a national election will keep broadcasting Sean Hannity and the other conservative talk radio hosts on Audacity is not credible, right? Because you know some of these talk show hosts, they kind of go against the narrative. Some of them are kind of blowing the whistle, kind of whistleblowers. Okay, so it's saying it's not necessarily credible. Okay, I get that. All right, to agree. Goes on to Texas Commission Ohio Chip Roy, a Republican, raised serious concerns about the Audacity purchase in April. Right. So anybody who knows the background of the wicked, all right, that should be alarming to you. But like I said, the average people, they just don't know, and some of them don't care, and they're just they're just going about their day, right? So it goes on to say, pointing out that that Soros Group had asked the FCC to waive the normal process where the agency reviews the access and foreign ownership interests, putting it off until quote unquote sometime down the line. Under Federal Communications Act, no radio station, listen to this, no radio station license can be held by a corporation with more than 25% foreign ownership. The Soros Group acknowledged that the level of foreign ownership of Audacity will exceed that and still requested that the FCC expedite the approval of the application of ownership to allow them to more quickly realize their ownership interests and take reins at these hundreds of local radio stations across the country, Congress Roy said in a letter to the FCC. Right, so we see that there are concerns with why this man, as you saw in the video, a lot of people understand, like, why is this man purchasing this? Well, Abaratazah, when we get to this lesson, you're going to understand why. As he said, there's a method to the madness here. All right, now, so just to kind of give you a breakdown on what, ESA and PEP radio stations are, I'm just going to go here. Matter of fact, before I do, let me just, I'm going to bring this up here. It's another George Soros taking shortcuts to buy 200 U.S. radio stations. I just want to get to the point here because usually when doing something like this, that major of a move, it takes time. This isn't something that just happens overnight. But again, you're dealing with the elites. You're dealing with globalists. All right. These people are talked about in the Bible. Okay. Job 9:24, the world was given into these people, to the hands of the wicked. Okay. So just to give you an understanding of what, all of the loopholes you have to go through just to get this passed. Now, remember, it was Bill Cosby at one time he wanted to buy CNBC or CBS, and look what happened with him. Okay, so just keep in mind that it's very, very difficult to purchase something like this, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops. So it says what we usually do is require people to file a petition with us, right? First, bring in the National Security Agency to review the foreign ownership, right? It's probably no big deal here. But we review the foreign ownership and then we vote, Carr said. Here they're trying to do something that's never been done before at a commission level. Rep. Nick Langworthy says during the hearing, he was extremely alarmed by the purchase. Right. Says looking at the fact, it seems the administration is giving a left-wing billionaire who is a major donor and close ally, one of the chief founders of all their efforts and their dark money, a free pass to take control of hundreds of local radio stations, flooding the airways with leftist propaganda. I think it's blatant, he said. FCC did not respond to the request comment for the national desk on Tuesday. Right, so ironically, as I said, he purchased this right before the election. All right, because we know what Trump, who we like to call narrow, all right, getting ready to sit in power seat, things are getting ready to turn up in a major way. Okay, they just passed, for those you don't know, that DOD, the Department of Defense, just passed a bill recently. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead, because all of this is connected. All right, if you have the Spirit upon you to be able to connect the dots here. All right, so let's go here. All right, this here is, I'm just going to show you up top here. This is the Department of Defense Directive 5240.01. Okay, so this is basically all of the intelligence related activities, defense and legislation components, assistance. All right, so this is pretty much how it's going to operate. So we're going to go down here to, I want to say in the threes here, because it talks about the Where's it at? Talks about, where is it at? 3. Yeah, professional assistance, right? Goes on to here. So let me just grab some of this here. All right. So this is the law, all right, that they've just, put in play. All right. So just so you get an understanding. So unless otherwise preluded to the law, so just let me see here. Let's start at 3 here. Providing specialized equipment, technical knowledge, or assistance of expert personnel for use by any federal department or agency, or when lives are endangered, to support state or local law enforcement agencies. Right. Providing specialized equipment. What's that? Technology, drones. All right. His military robots and police dogs and whatnot. Okay. They have all this stuff amped up, and they have all this stuff. They've been had all this stuff ready. All right. When you go back to 2015, Jade Helm, all right, when they had all the military vehicles that were coming here, that were ushering into Texas, all right, choppers and tanks and all that. Looks like we were in Afghanistan. Why are you bringing all that stuff here? Right? Because everything that they do, well, the scripture we roll, woe to them that seek to hide their counsel from the Lord. So all these things they do in secret, and the public isn't found out or doesn't find out about these things until, sometimes weeks or, even months later. Okay, but it's already in play. Okay, so these are some of the initiatives that are going to ensue. It says when lives are in danger, rendering any lawful assistance to law enforcement agencies or other civil authorities provided such assistance is consistent with and has been approved by officials pursuant to Section 2, yada, yada, yada. Let's get down here to the point here. Levels of authority in this bill, okay? I highlighted some here. It says the decision to approve respects for these types of permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2, which we just read up here. So all these things here would have to go in play in order for this levels of authority to take place, right? It says provisions of personnel to support response efforts for civil disturbances, which may also require presidential authorization. What does that mean? A state of an emergency, okay? Certain provisions will be implemented in a state of emergency when the president pretty much signs off on a state of emergency. And what happens when the state of emergency is in play? Who takes over? FEMA takes over. Okay? It goes on to say DOT response to chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, or high yield explosive incidents. Here's the point. Assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian and law enforcement officials in situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or group is reasonably anticipated. Such use of force may be in accordance with DOD 5210.56. All right, for those of you who don't know what that is, let me see if I have that here. Yeah, it's actually right here. All right, DOT 5 there, reissue and cancels. Carrying a firearms, use of force by personnel engaged. So basically, giving the military the right to use deadly force against civilians, all right, against Americans. All right, so this is the bill that's just passed. Now, keep in mind, like I said, they need an event to take place. Okay, so they're preparing for something. All right, and what better way to prepare for a major event and have control of it than to have the narrative, to control the narrative. All right, and in a minute, we're going to get into what these actual radio stations, what they're, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go to them now here. The broadcasting mapping. All right, so let's go here. All right, you see here? All right, now ESA and PEP radio station or should I say emergency broadcasting radio stations. All right, so roughly there, I want to say 77 designated primary entry points. That's what PEP stands for. Radio stations in the United States that serve as part of emergency alert system, better known as EAS, which is primarily AM stations responsible for broadcasting emergency alerts across the country. So you see, So George Soros just purchased. Now here we are in Texas, all lit up here. These are 15 cities within Texas here that have AM stations here. Okay, so Odyssey, all right, bought up all radio stations. To over 200 radio stations were bought by George Soros. So when the guy says, well, who's buying and why would you buy AM radio stations? For this reason right here, Texas state of emergency. You see, is the reason why. Primary entry point, PEP, ESA stations. Battled hard facilities represent significant federal investments. Radio stations, yada, yada, yada. 90% of PE stations are on the AM band. Let me repeat that. 90% of these PEP stations are on the AM band. So as this man is buying radio stations, and what they say, the one that's in Cuba, it's a tribe of Manasseh. Okay, South America, ironically, where Israelites are. Here in America and in South America, this man is buying up AM radio stations. Why? The narrative? These stations serve as a primary entry point for national emergency alert system traffic during a national emergency. They are upgraded to stay on the air for 30 days. 4 in Texas, all are AM, KLBA, Austin, WBAP, Dallas, Fort Worth, KROD, El Paso, KTRH, Houston. Okay. 278 AM radio stations serve the Lone Star State. Nationwide radio station audience, 23,999,300. Texans listening to AM radio stations, 6,697,900. That's roughly 28%. Okay, that are listening to AM stations. Now, AM stations are prevalent and they come into play in a state of an emergency. Okay, you look at here everywhere from Abilene all the way down to Wichita Falls. Okay, this is the radio audience. This is the AM reach. Okay, audience 23 million, AM reach 6 million, 28% roughly. You see, AM radio in District 2. All right, so this is the map here. All right, here in Houston and then in the following area, these are all AM radio stations here. Okay, these are the stations that keep you abreast of what's going on when there's an emergency. Here's the impact of removing AM radio stations, or not removing it, having the wicked purchase it. Okay, because if the wicked's going to purchase something that's used for emergencies to warn the people, that's going to raise an eyebrow, right? It says diminishing stations audience reach, revenue, and programming, compromises communities' emergency preparedness and response. You see, weakens community ties and local coverage of school, sports, and news elections. You see that? Right here. AM radio station to the rescue as Amarillo floods in June 8th of 2023. Amarillo flooding here at KGNC AM broadcasting from the staging area using tie line, cell phones, and laptops to be the only media getting the info out. You see? This is a radio station here, AM, but they're the only ones. So whenever there's a state of emergency, it's the AM radio stations that come into effect. So now you see the cross, or you see the reason why this man has purchased all of these radio stations. You see, is it starting to become clear now? Because as I said, and ironically, right before the election, right? Trump coming in office, what is he saying he was doing? All right, they spit these things out, but they're not for just for no reason. He's talking about giving the law enforcement an hour purge. All right, basically where the government's going to turn a blind eye and they can send the law enforcement out into whatever community, and for an hour, you can purge. Okay? This sounds like Second Esdras, the 15th chapter is what they're preparing for. As a matter of fact, I wasn't going to get it, but you know what? I'm going to get it because it all makes sense. All right, if you got the spiritual eyes to see and the ears to hear and understand what's going on. All right, let me grab this here. This is Second Esdras. Grab it in the GNT here really quick. Baba Kashah, just bear with me. Let me see here. Sunny in the clouds. Slakia. This reconnection. I don't know what's going on with my phone. Slakia. this reconnection. I don't know what's going on with my phone here. But yeah, I'm getting ready to pull this second Ezra 15, start at 14, because all this is leading up to something. This purchasing of these radio stations, all right, as I said, they move in secret. So the scriptures talk about it. This is what inevitably is getting ready to happen here. Second Ezra 15 and start at 14. The world and the people in it are doomed. The war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. There will be great political turmoil, with one group trying to overpower the other and gain control while ignoring the legitimate government. You see? So is that not a reason, when you're reading all this, is that not a reason for the president to call a state of emergency? That's what's being said here. There will no longer be free access to the cities, right? Martial law. Because the struggle for power will bring destruction, terror, and total confusion wherever people live. Driven by famine and terrible suffering, people will assault their neighbors and mercilessly plunder their possessions. You see that? Civil unrest, sedition, martial law, civil war. Okay? So what better way to kick this off by controlling the narrative? Right? So now you understand why George Soros is buying up all of these seemingly worthless, dated radio stations. Well, there is a method to the madness. Okay? When you understand how these devils move. As I said, everything is done, all right, with a purpose, okay, and a reason. Okay? Now I've heard people say there's that this won't pretty much, it won't really come into fruition due to the what is it called, the Posse Commodus Act of 1878. Pretty much what it, sum it up, it pretty much removed the military from regular civilian law enforcement. All right, and pretty much it was enacted to response a lot of the abuse that was going on and resulting in the army, okay, when they were called upon, all right, in dealing with civil law enforcement during the Civil War. All right, and this act basically, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to pull it here. I'm going to research it here. I'm not going to butcher it. The Posse Commodus Act of 1873, which removed the military from regular law enforcement and is enacted in response to the abuse resulting from the extensive use of the army and civil war enforcement and civil law enforcement, Salakia, during the Civil War and the Reconstruction. Here's the point. The act allows legislative exceptions. You see? So once again, he calls a state of an emergency. Okay, the Commodus Act, the Posse Commodus Act of 1878 is going to be thrown out of the window. You see, now we know Isaiah 45 says that the Lord frustrates the tokens of the wicked. Isaiah 45 and 25, as a matter of fact. So they're not going to be able to fully come in fruition with their plan, ultimately. All right, but we know that a certain amount, all right, of Jakes, all right, are going to be taken. All right, and this is something that you should not take lightly, ultimately, man. All right, this is something that they've been working on. Okay, this is a part of their New World Order, the enterprise. All right, as I said, they need an event to take place. All right, so they're setting the stage. All right, Jake, you Negroes, you Latinos, you Native Indians, all right, you are pretty much the focal point of their assault on the American people. All right, when you read Rex 84, which I brought up, King Alfred Plan. Matter of fact, I got it here. For those who don't have their swords, you can just read it. King Alfred Plan, right up top here, highlight. The King Alfred Plan is a fictional CIA-led scheme. Now, he always puts that in there. It's not fictional, okay? And when I read it, you're going to understand that it's not. A fictional scheme supported in an international effort to eliminate people of African descent. Invented by author James A. Williams in the novel A Man Who Cried I Am, Williams described it as a government plan to deal with the threat of a black uprising in the United States, right? By contorting off black people into concentration camps in the event of a major racial incident. Now, we just read 2 Ezra 15, right? Starting at the 14th verse. That's what this is talking about, all right? Major racial incident, civil war is getting ready to ensue, okay? Matter of fact, let's get Rex 84 readiness exercise. Bravo was a classified scenario and drill developed by the United States federal government to detain large numbers of United States residents deemed to be national security threats. Okay, isn't the so-called Hebrew Israelites, so-called black Hebrew Israelites? Okay, are we not on that list? Right? It says in the event that the president declares a national emergency. We just read that. Okay, we just read that in the DOD, right? In the Departments of Defense letter. Goes on to say the scenario envisioned the state defense forces rounding up 500,000 undocumented Central American residents and 4,000 American citizens whom the U.S. Attorney General had designated as national security threats. I wonder who that could possibly be. As part of the secret community, that's what it says, a continuity of government program, these people would be detained in 22 military bases and concentration camps ran by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. You see? So you can see, you can read between the lines, okay, with what's getting ready to ensue. Okay? And these are laws that have been in play. Okay? Matter of fact, Isaiah 10:1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. When you prescribe something, you write it beforehand. Okay? So these are laws that are put in place. Once this stuff ensues, all right, and there's videos that I've done, other brothers have done recently, talking about when Trump gets into office, how you so-called Negroes are going to be attacked, college campuses, churches, and whatnot, bombings, okay? Because ultimately they know who we are, okay? So the doors have been opened to have all of you so-called South Americans come over here into this country, okay? Because they have something planned for you, okay? This isn't done just on a whim. And these Edomites are pissed because they don't know what's going on. But the only people that do really, truly are the men of the Lord. Okay? We are given the spirit of the Lord, the eye salve, to be able to see, extrapolate through the scriptures and tell you what's they're getting ready to do, what's getting ready to happen. And the Bible is undefeated. Okay? So these are the times that we're in right now. This is what's getting ready to ensue. Okay? So again, there is a reason why this man has purchased all right, all of these radio stations, all right, because they're planning something wicked this way comes. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to do a quick hit. Abaratazah. It was edifying unto those who meant to receive it. And again, I want to give all honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. And double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone. Shalom.